President Sohn, thanks for joining us.
Oh, just call me Young, please.
Oh, Young. Okay. Well, if I had the title President, I would make everybody call me President.
No. Yeah.
Well, I thank you for joining us. It's quite a treat to have you here. I'm going to start out with a quote. We talked earlier, and you said, "I'm not a company guy. I'm an entrepreneur. I started my first company out of my MIT dorm room, but now you're the president of Samsung. Why Samsung?"
Well, I think it's a global platform, and when I started my first company, it was hard. I learned a lot about mistakes one made, and also actually you learn a lot by doing it. And then eventually, you build your companies, you take an IPO, and then you want to scale that experience and being able to use that experience to build even bigger platform. Maybe that's probably why.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there are in the opposite, right? They're at the big corporation right now, but they have this entrepreneurial mindset, and they want to start a new company, but they can't for financial reasons. They can't leave their job. So how can they exist in a corporation but have this founder mindset?
Well, that's a really interesting point. For me, I'm kind of done the whole 360 turns, and every opportunity, whether it's a small, large, or medium size, which I all played, I think they all have an opportunity to be an innovator and disruptor and be able to change so they can create more value propositions. So I think that it's our mindset. Even big companies like Samsung, which is a $250 billion company, and it requires energy, it requires change, it needs a disruption. And how do you do that in large corporations?
Yeah, exactly.
Just like small companies do.
Right, right. So I guess my question is, what advice do you give to people on how to be a disruptor while still not getting fired?
Well, I think that taking risk is always important, and also kind of learning about really the outside the box. So many of us are in silos. So how do you get comfortable with learning new ideas, being able to reach out to outside of your group? Because I think the problem with large corporation is everybody's boxed in because of the organization, division structure, functions. And how do you cross-communicate? How do you create a multidisciplinary actions? And then really focus on customers.
Sure.
Focus on the end pain point. If you do that, then I think you can energize the teams to work on common problems. Maybe that's one way you can mobilize the organization and take some risk.
Yeah. Samsung has operations throughout the world, but we're in Europe. What is it about Berlin that you find especially special?
Well, Berlin, for me, is very special. First of all, we have a very large operation in Europe. We have over 25,000 people. And in Germany alone, we have over 3,000 people. And one of our business that we acquired, Harman International, is actually origined with a Anglo-German background.
Sure.
Becker Radio was a part of German company that Harman acquired, and then eventually became part of Samsung. So in many of the brands that you're used to, whether it's a JBL, AKG, whether it is Infinity, whether it's all the automobile companies that are out there with the sound systems, that all actually have a German engineering that are part of the origin. They came from here, and we have a very large organization that are part of an ecosystem. And Berlin is a great place. It has a lot of energy, a lot of entrepreneurism, and very open communities. So I love coming up here.
You just told me backstage that you spend half your time traveling. Do you have a house in Europe?
I do. Actually, I only have one house in Europe, and it's in Berlin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. What made you fall in love with here? Not the business, personally.
Right. No, I just think that it has a really good context of my interest, which is technology, as well as the location, which is very convenient, central, except the airport, maybe.
Oh, yes.
Hopefully soon it's going to get better. But other than that, really is a great performance for the kind of talent you can get. And also, I don't look at Berlin as just for Germany. I think it's really center for European talent that can all come together and building new ecosystem and business. So we're very excited about making some good investment here as well.
Oh, right. Just yesterday, we announced on TechCrunch that you invested in Wefox.
Right, right.
What does Wefox do, and why did you invest in them?
Yeah, Wefox is a very disruptive company. Basically, they want to apply the cloud mobile technology and really the IoT data to change the traditional insurance model. As you know, if you think about your insurance model today, it is still very old approach, right? With paper, pen, faxes, and being able to reach out. It's a great business.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, the business needs to change. And I think what Wefox want to do is digitalize, mobilize, and using data to give you a much more personal insurance experience. And I'm really happy that we can be a part of Syndicate. They have joined the investment. I don't know whether Julian is here. Raise hand, please, Julian.
No,
please stand up. I think Julian is the latest unicorn that joined the scene from Europe. And now there are about 30 unicorns out of Europe, I guess.
So speaking of Europe, if you were to be an entrepreneur again and found a company in Europe, where in Europe would you do it? There's Paris and London, Berlin.
Well, that's a tough question.
I know, that's what I do. I ask you the tough questions. Sir.
Well, given our interesting global footprint, I think there are many great places to start. Depend on your focus on business, depend on your talent. Clearly, I think Berlin has a good, what I call performance to value ratio. Mm-hmm. So if you think about one, you can actually get a talent from around the world. Two, actually, the cost of living and cost of engineering is very competitive. So in that sense, I think it's a very good place to start. But obviously, depend on your business, depend on which market you want to go after, will dictate your priorities.
What about America? Is Trump helping or hurting the startup ecosystem there?
I'd rather not want to comment on Trump.
Why is that?
I think that, let me just say, sometimes business runs despite political system.
Okay, but you spend a lot of your time in Silicon Valley.
I sure do, yes.
Right, so you spend, how much time in Silicon Valley do you work?
Well, we have a huge operation in the US, and we also have a big R&D center, innovation center in Silicon Valley. So clearly, Silicon Valley is very critical to innovate new ideas, new platforms, and new partnerships. So very critical part of our ecosystem.
And then there's China. It seems that Samsung Electronics is putting an additional $8 billion into a memory factory there. What is the timeline for that project?
Well, actually, the plant we invested in China has been operational for a couple of years now. We are maybe we are the largest investor in tech industry that made investment in China. Obviously, China is a great market, large market, but also it's an ecosystem that you have to manage, given the what I call geopolitical system that we are living in. And I feel that some of standardization is getting fragmented. So you will have the West-based system, and you might have the system that may be Chinese-based systems. And a company like us in between have to figure out how to navigate both geopolitical systems.
Right. So getting back to this $8 billion investment, it was reported today that you guys are putting this into this existing factory that you already spent $10 billion on.
Right.
When will that be done?
Well, this is typically in semiconductor investment, it usually takes about 18 months to build, 18 to 24 months, depend on new or old site. In this case, because we already have a footprint in Xi'an, and adding additional capacity is a bit faster than building a whole new plant.
You know, it's great to have you here because you're one of the few executives that was successful as a startup founder. You founded companies and you had exits, and then you retired. And then Samsung pulled you back into the fold. So it's great to have you here to get these insights. And let's talk about startups, though, for a moment. Do you find in your current role that customers' expectations around minimal viable products are changing? Do people expect things that are a beta, or do they expect things just to work perfectly out of the box?
I think it depends on the products. But if it's software products, if it's an application, I think there's more patience and tolerance. But if it's a final products, then I think they expect much more perfection out of the products.
Well, let's talk about that Galaxy Fold. Take me into your office after that launched earlier this year.
Right. And
there was many screen issues. What did you do, or what did you think when all these reports came in?
This product that we create, this is our first product, and clearly foldable products give you an opportunity to give you the bigger interface, so you can be able to do emails and whatever, much bigger than what it is. But as like any products, first generation goes through a lot of learning curve. Learning curve in terms of improving the performance, improving durability, improving crease, having the ecosystem built in. So I would say that this is Gen 1. And you will see it's going to get better and better and better, in my view, and thinner and lighter with a longer battery life.
Is Samsung comfortable selling what is essentially a beta device to consumers for $2,000?
Oh, I don't know. You know, I think that this is probably still good enough, in my view. I'll take a picture of you.
That's great.
And a picture of the crowd. And then, you know, being able to not only be able to see it here, but being able to see it in a bigger form factor.
Sure, yeah.
It's not a bad experience.
I'm a good-looking
and
guy.
I think it's be able to get you a kind of experience that you might not be able to have today. The reason we have to do it, by doing it, we learn. And then through that feedback, we can improve our product. And that is a really important process. If we just do it in the lab, we might not be able to really refine the product the way it is now.
You know, that's great for Samsung as one of the largest electronics makers in the world. You have the money to do so. But speaking to these startup founders out there who probably do not have the capital to pull a product back, refine it, how should they launch a hardware product like that? Do they need to make an MVP, or can they launch a final product?
Well, I think that, again, if it's software products, it's a bit easier to do A/B testing. But I think with hardware products, you got to think about customer experience and do it right. And do it right first time. So it's not like we don't want to do it right first time. And I think that the point is, we're selling millions of these products there. There's a million people that want to use this product at $2,000 each.
How many of those have you sold?
As I said, it's about 1 million products.
1 million.
Yeah.
You sold 1 million of those.
So, you know, I think the point is, though, most important thing for large corporation is learning from it and refining the product. For startups, you have a limited cash flow.
Right.
So at the end of the day, cash is king. So you have to figure out how to optimize your cash so they can be able to last your investment horizon, give enough confidence so you can raise your next fund so they can move on.
So what about when it launches and it doesn't do very well? How should startups respond to negative criticism?
Well, you know, I think that part of being successful is about pivoting. It's about learning from the feedback and improving your product before you die. And you know, my first company did not do very well because I think we didn't have enough funding. And I believe over time I could have learned and do it. But sometimes getting the right funding, getting the right partners, and people that are patient is critical in this journey. And sometimes success and failure isn't just about you. It's about the people you work with and the market you're going after. So it's a really important part of timing. Partners that you find to work with.
That was a big bet for Samsung. Do you prefer to invest in companies that take big bets?
Yeah, we do. You know, if you think about the kind of companies we invested in Europe, we invested in over 40 companies in Europe last 5 years. Some of them are already successful. So let's look at some of the companies we invested. One of them is Darktrace. Darktrace is a basically cybersecurity company. And that was a pretty big bet because they really want to put enough money to creating a network detection system, a bit of a self-healing system. And you may have heard of GrabCore, Nigel Toon yesterday.
Right.
That's another company that I was actually involved personally as a board member. We actually helped them to come out of XMOS and be able to bet that basically the engine for AI is going to be different than today's CPU, today's GPU. We need a data flow engine required, and we decided to bet on new architecture. And it's going to take time, but sometimes this architecture bet can be also failure as well. But we believe by changing the way data is consumed, you can change the kind of architecture that are required to be able to accelerate data flow.
Sure. What other investments have you made in Europe?
Oh, well, we invested in a company called Amplify. Probably never heard of it. It's a company in France. It's a company that actually create a very important laser technology that are critical to creating all the semiconductor devices. So sometimes we invest to enable the industry. Sometimes we
Sure.
enable companies that are in application space. So it depends on our interest. And we are very much interested in also investing in health-related companies because we believe that with the technology, mobility, and cloud, and data, and digital, we believe we can really improve health from reactive health to proactive health. So we're looking at several companies in Europe today that could become next big change in agent.
Do you have a dedicated fund for Europe?
We
big is
have what we call international fund that supports both Israel as well as Europe. And in the process, we have quite a bit of a speed. Once we make a decision in a day, we could fund the company next day. So we have very good agility for large corporations to enable innovation to happen.
How should these people get that money? What's the best way to pitch you?
Well, the best way is really talking with our team. I think we got some of our team members in the audience, like Dede, as well as Nicola and others. And their job is really talking with the startup entrepreneurs. And we also have some of the competitions that we run every year, and to enable startup companies join in. And I can talk more about that as well.
Well, there's the XTC,
Right.
right? And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it was held here too, right?
Right, exactly. So XTC is a competition for startups. It's something that actually I found as a part of my own desire to see startups that are working on the tech for good agenda.
Sure.
And the idea is really to educate, acknowledge that UN 17 sustainability is a very important objective, and we want to make sure there is a global competition to address this issue. So you will see there is a boost that's supporting this, and soon we're going to be announcing some winners as well.
Well, I have a couple more questions, but before we get into this,
Yeah.
you're a car guy. I want to get your thoughts on the Porsche Taycan.
Okay.
Right? That was announced yesterday. That was 200-mile range. Does that use Samsung batteries inside it?
Well, you can assume that Samsung battery is in most of the cars. Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, Porsche, Volkswagen Group are big customer of our technology, whether it's a sound system, whether it's a memory system, whether future 5G. I think we're very well integrated into their need. Taycan is a great-looking car. It's not out yet. It's not driving,
Sure.
but something that I get really excited about as well. Great design, a lot of display, and classic Porsche design know-how. The only downside that I'm concerned is about the mileage. Compared to my Tesla, it's a slightly less mileage than what's out there. So I'm hoping to see improved mileage out of the future electric cars.
What about the Cybertruck?
Cybertruck, I think if you're a geek, if you have money, and if you're not true, let's say, moving stuff in the back, maybe it's a nice-looking trucks to show. I think it's enough range you can go a lot of places. So one thing that you can do, you can go to Tahoe and ski and come back without worrying about charging.
Right.
So that's a really good benefit of that, I guess.
Well, that's really interesting. You're a car guy, I can tell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, as you've proven throughout this interview, you're not a company guy, you're an entrepreneur, but you're Samsung Electronics president now. And Samsung is facing a lot of legal issues in Korea. And I have to do my job. I have to ask you these questions. Just on Monday, a judge sent 3 Samsung Electronic executives to jail. What happened?
Well, I think that I want to make sure there are 2 different parts of the group. So the Samsung management, Samsung Corporation, is actually not a target of this particular probe. But there are some parts of the team that was involved in taking certain spin-out IPO as looked at as a part of, let's say, prosecutors asking to clarify their position in the what I call value of the IPO. So there's always discussion that goes on that are complex, legal. I don't even get involved in day-to-day details around those because it's their personal affair. But I think corporation is actually, Samsung Electronics is free of that accusation.
No, the report on Monday was that 3 Samsung Electronic employees they were executives, specifically electronics, were the ones to go to jail. Is
Right.
this trial affecting your ability as president to run the company?
I think that a company is more than few people. It's a corporation with a large number of organizations, and they are really focused on building business. And 95% of our business is global, and clearly Korean relationship, Korean government is a very important part of our ecosystem we have to manage. But at the end of the day, company is running with a ambition of being the largest corporations in the electronic space.
A lot of companies face culture issues. Is there something within Samsung that needs to change to prevent this from happening in the future?
I think that's really important for any corporations, any size, whether it's a small or large, that you need to have a clear value system and clear ethics, and continue to train your management to making sure that there is a consistency in terms of how they think. By the way, they are accused, they're not proven guilty, so please don't misunderstand between those two. I want to make sure that no innocent people are proven guilty until they're proven guilty, right?
Of course.
So it's a different legal system, but I want to make sure that part is very clear. And no innocent people should go to jail because it's accused.
Yes,
right? That's what I like about American system.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Look at Trump. He can run around and still, until guilty, he's not guilty.
Well,
Right.
I guess
Yeah.
if you say it that way, sure.
Right.
So let's get back to startups real quick. We have about 3 minutes left. You see a lot of pictures and you see a lot of startups. What's a common mistake you see that startup founders make when pitching?
I think sometimes you can be too impatient. So I know a pivot is a very important word, and you have to change with a dime. But I think it's really important that you got to believe in your conviction and be patient around those. I think the other thing is make sure you are surrounded with the really good people that are complementary, not always agreeing with you, but complementary skill sets, so that you can be able to build a company with the strengths of 1 + 1 + 1 is 3 or plus, not 2. And that's really important as well. And then getting the right investors. Investors that understand your dream, investor that has the patience, investor that has ability to back you up.
What type of founders work best with you?
I think we work really well with the people with a big dream. I think that when I met Julian, I loved his view of how he can disrupt traditional industry with using technology. So it's a technology usage, disrupting the big world, and being a pioneer. And then I want to see someone that can be a category winner in that space.
Sure.
Because we believe that disruption is coming everywhere, whether it's health, whether it's insurance, it's banking. All these things are going to be applying data to improve the applications and performance. They can tailor and they can be able to charge proper economic value creation. And in the process, I believe that there will be many winners. And there will be many winners in this room. So we want to back those winners by supporting the right category with the right entrepreneur that has the drive and leadership and dream.
Right. So you pointed out a couple people. Let's say their names one more time so these people can get their money. Who in the audience is here from your team?
I think the Dede, you want to hand?
There we go.
Stefan, are you here?
What's Stefan's email address?
Stefan Genders. Huh?
Okay.
And I think Nikolai is here as well, somewhere.
I mean, we cannot bring the president of Samsung Electronics to our stage and not offer his money up, right? That's the only proper thing to do. Well, sir, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for your time as well, and really appreciate this Disrupt supporting some of our very important agenda here.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks a lot.